Tina and her friends spend several weeks practicing their performance, holding auditions and rehearsals in preparation for the first student led Black History Month program. The big day is approaching fast, but Tina is also juggling a part time job, trying to save up for her road trip to Atlanta and help out with her younger siblings. Joy is 4 years younger than Tina, short and cute as ever, with her dark brown skin and thick, long, beautiful hair. She loves the character Punky Brewster, so Tina bought her some colorful rain boots. Now, anytime you see Joy, she's wearing her rain boots. Tina's in the bathroom brushing Joy's hair into a ponytail. Joy, do you have to wear those boots everywhere we go? Yes, I love my boots, sister. Where are we going? I'm taking you and Erica to work with me today because mommy's not here and big sis has Pop and Ruby already. Yay! Can I have mozzarella sticks, please? Yes, but promise me you will be quiet and listen to Erica. My boss can't find out I'm bringing y'all here. So be cool. It's going to be a long 4 hours, but it's better than being cooped up in this house. Okay, I'll be quiet as a mouse. Joy lets out a squeaky but sneaky sounding laugh. You better be. Now come on, Honky. We have to go meet Erica at the bus stop. They head outside to meet Erica. The three girls take two buses to the shopping mall on the outskirts of the city. When they exit the bus, the girls have to cross a 3-lane busy street to get to Carmine's Pizzeria. Okay, y'all, let's hold hands and follow my lead. Carmine's is an old school pizzeria where customers pull up in their vintage cars to be served by young waitresses wearing short red shorts, and some are wearing and serving in skates. The girls split up to enter the building through different doors. Erica takes Joy's hand and leads her to a booth in the back of the restaurant. Tina clocks in to begin working at the cash register when she hears her boss calling for her. She heads into the office a little worried because she's been lying about her age. Tina, it's been several months. I still don't have your work permit. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting because I have so much going on in school. You are excellent at the cash register, but you must bring your work permit before you enter the next shift. Okay, I will. Tina turns to exit but realizes her boss is not finished. Oh, by the way, the other girls think it's unfair that you haven't rotated to serve outside. He tries to hand Tina a pair of red shorts. She refuses them. Yeah, my mama ain't gonna let me wear those short shorts. Well, tell your mother to buy you red shorts you can wear because you have to rotate outside. Tina's pivot story continues in episode 4 of the Pivot Muse podcast and is brought to you by PenHaus Media. It's important for me to let you know that the Pivot Muse is presented by Melanin Muse. Melanin Muse is our love letter to Black women, sharing our genius and our impact on this world, owning our narrative. It's our time. So with that said, we have a quick question for you. As you've pivoted throughout your life and career, who are your Melanin Muses and what impact have they made on your journey?
I love that question because it gives me an opportunity to honor the melanin muses in my life. Number one being my mother. My mother passed 2 years ago, and I just really value all the things she brought into my life so much and who she made me. She's with me, even though she's not physically here in this plane, she's still with me. And becoming a mother has made me appreciate her even more and everything that she did, the sacrifices that she made, and how she showed up and just really always maintain joy. One thing I will say about my mom is she was a light and she was joyous throughout her entire life. And the circumstances weren't always sweet. So I have that inside of me also, the ability to emit and vibrate from a place of light. And I know that comes from her. And one of my other melanin muses who I did not have a chance to ever meet in this life, but that I admire is Madam C.J. Walker. I've read her biography that was actually written by her great granddaughter. And there are so many letters that are included that are her writing the letters and just her mind state and what she was able to accomplish at the time that she was able to accomplish it. I've just always been really inspired by her.
I love that now. Boss, right? But I can say that you do illuminate a room when you walk in. So moms did pass that down. Really excited. My sister, and this conversation is going to be great. The Pivot Muse brings you curated stories and advice from global professionals on making one of life's most important decisions, which is the pivot. I'm your host, Natina Marie, and our guest today is Lakila Bowden, founder and COO of iSee Technologies Incorporated. Thank you so much, sis. This conversation is really for our audience to get to know you and all these other global professionals that are making moves and talking about not just our careers and our businesses, but life and
Mhm.
relationships. How do we hack these things? How do we navigate through when it's necessary? And really just understanding how to be successful in the art of the pivot. You've done a lot, leaving corporate very young, and all the things you're doing with iSee Technologies with your sister Kamille is just amazing. I also know that you're an investor. And you don't talk much about that, that's your business. But we're going to bring a little bit here to the Pivot Muse. I need you to let the people know. Let's talk a little bit about when you started, because I can assume you started investing probably before you left corporate.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for asking me that question because I think it's important for us to have that conversation. So I did. I started investing before I left corporate. It was in my 30s when I really got serious about it. So, what was kind of the catalyst for me was I was working in corporate, making great money. At the time, I was living in South Florida, living on the beach. Like literally, my condo, my backyard was the ocean, and I loved it down there. And I thought to myself, I said, "Yeah, this is great, but if I don't work for these people, I can't afford to do this." So that is what really started my process of saying, okay, how do I start to make money that doesn't require me? We only have so many hours in a day that we can work. And I'm also a big, and we'll probably talk about this too, I'm a big proponent of rest. Love my nap. So I'm not trying to work 24/7 and grind myself down to a nub. I just don't subscribe to that. But money, on the other hand, money doesn't need hug, kisses, encouragement, none of that stuff. It could be on the stroll. So I was like, how can I put my money on the stroll? Real estate was kind of what I naturally gravitated towards. And I was initially looking at a traditional path in real estate. I was like, I'm going to buy places, I'm going to fix them, I'm going to rent them out, or maybe flip them, that kind of thing. I actually moved out of that condo, moved in with one of my homegirls. I like significantly cut my expenses and I put all my additional money, everything that I was paying for rent. I even took my car. I was driving a drop top at the time, traded that in, stacked that money, and I had all that money investing. I met a guy in real estate meeting who was a private, and I didn't really know anything about private lending. So I asked him out to lunch. Well, he happened to be the largest private lender in all of South Florida. And he was like, do you want to be answering tenants' phone calls in the middle of the night? Do you want to deal with toilets that are clogged? Are you picking up a hammer? And I was like, I am not doing those things. So, he started telling me more about private lending, which was me lending my money out to investors. And this is what I liked about it. It's backed by the property. So this collateralized, these are secured investments. It's not like the stock market where if it drops, then that's it. If something were to happen, I have insurance on the property. So let's say the property that's securing the loan burns to the ground, the insurance company is going to pay me out. If the lender or the borrower stops paying me back, I'm literally on the mortgage. So I can repossess that property, sell it, and rent it out, whatever I want to do. And I was like, I like all these fail safes that are in place. I connected with my real estate mentor in North Carolina. Shout out to Jerome Bell. He and I have made quite a bit of money together. Told him what I wanted to do, and he gave me my first opportunity in private lending. And that's been mailbox money for me ever since. I used that also to help my dad as he retired in corporate America. I got him involved in private lending where I managed that. It's not something you hear a lot of people talk about, the ability to do that. But that created a nice cushion for me where I got to the point where I was like, I don't need this job anymore. I am here, but I don't need it. And then that kind of started my path of my exit strategy from corporate.
I want to talk about that's a huge pivot you made, right? Because this is the part that people don't want to kind of buckle down, as my girl Zook would say, and do like really look over how much you're spending, what things you can cut back, what sacrifices you can make to actually get to your goal. So
Mm-hmm.
you said, okay, I left my apartment. Now you good and grown because once you hit 18 or you graduate from college, whatever it is, even as a young person, you feel like, oh, I'm grown, right? And I should have my own, I want my own, all those things. And I know young people of today, they absolutely want to have their own place. Rent is skyrocketed. So
Yeah.
they are working to pay rent. If you want to stay downtown Atlanta, you're paying 25 to 3,000 as a single person. So the fact that you said, okay, I need to cut my expenses because I don't want to be dependent on corporate America. Although I'm making a great salary, this looks good, I'm having fun, but let me cut back. So you cut back by saying, okay, I'm gonna split rent with my friend. Then you traded your car in.
Joe did quick, fast, hurry.
Young boss. Okay.
Look, for me, Natina, and I've always, it's a part of my personality. I've always been this way. I appreciate nice things. I appreciate experiences a whole lot more. And I've never attached my worth or my value to anything outside of Lakila and myself. So it was nothing. Like that condo on the beach was great. I can get to the beach anytime. And I wanted to be back there from a different capacity where it wasn't dependent on a job. So the car, beautiful, nice. I traded an Lexus for an Acura. A car is a mode of transportation, but it wasn't just cutting expenses. I believe in abundance. Let me put it like that. I
Okay.
believe in
Okay.
abundance. So it wasn't a matter of let me just cut back and scrimp and save. For
Right.
me, it was these dollars can be doing something more effective. I took the same money that I was paying at that time. I think I was spending like $2,000, 2,200 or something a month. And then I can't remember exactly what my car payment was, but it came up to like 3,000. This $3,000 I'm spending every month, I can be investing that money and it can be making a return for me. So it wasn't just let me cut back, let me stop having coffee every morning. I don't drink coffee, but that's kind of the mindset. I was single. I did not have children at the time, and it just made a lot of sense for me. But I think if we think about where do I want to be, for me, it was about the bigger goal of where I wanted to be and what I wanted my money doing for me. And I also helped my girl out. So now she's making money because she's getting part of the rent that I'm paying directly to her. And my money is making money. So it just all made sense. I didn't stop traveling. I didn't stop eating good. None of those things. I was still riding around, my little act right.
Right. And you still was able to go to the beach.
I was still at the beach anytime I wanted to be at the beach.
How old were you?
I think I was 34 at the time. So early 30s, early 30s. I will say this is in my history. So prior to living in South Florida, I lived in Atlanta, and both my girlfriend and I, we were homeowners. Our houses were underwater. We both short sold our houses, moved into an apartment complex together. Her boyfriend at the time was a police officer. So we had a courtesy apartment, which meant we were paying $400 a month to live there. So I was already like in the mindset of let's make this money do more. And I did that then too. So I had a history of pivoting.
Right. Sometimes we don't name the thing, and even the goal of having this podcast and focusing just on the art of pivoting to me is very essential to really helping our audience, our people understand, because we have a lot of folks that just get stuck and
Yeah.
they don't know what to do. And then you say, okay, I was in Atlanta before this and owned a home. And
Mm-hmm.
I want you to tell the people what under the water means.
Look, that home was not worth what I was paying for. It was valued at significantly less than what my mortgage was based on. So when I saw that, I said, well, damn. So I called the bank and I was like, hey, I want to make some arrangements. And they were like, absolutely not. You make way too much money. We're not changing anything. So again, now I'm not afraid to take risk. I was like, I know how I can get them to make a change. I stopped paying my mortgage. And I'm not saying everybody should do that. I'm just saying I was comfortable with it. They came back to me and they were like, all right, now what can we work out? That's how I got them to negotiate. And I was able to do what I needed to do to get out of that situation. And it was fine.
Well, honestly, that's the part. That was a life hack. So sometimes, because I know me in my 20s as a young mom and very structured in my thought, because it was all like trained through school and training, and I wanted to do better and have a better life than my childhood. So I was just very, very structured. So sometimes you're not willing to be flexible with that. Oh, I'm worried about my credit. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. But sometimes you have to be able to strategize out of something. So if you didn't know that, now we know you the master of negotiation, so we'll get to that as well. But you understood that, but also today, a person can just research, go to YouTube University, right? And really
Hmm.
just put it out there and find out, like, how do I get out of this situation?
Right.
And soon you'll be able to use my pivot, my pivot AI and get some suggestions on it. I just love that story about you. And I know there's so much to this pivotal journey that you've been on. I'm glad you shared that. I want to know, what age did you find yourself really seeing yourself as an entrepreneur? Where did that start?
I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I can even go back to elementary school. I used to run at my church. There was this mentorship program that we would, while sermon was going on, all the 10 and up kids would go to the parsonage and we would literally have business meetings. And I was the president of this mentorship program for years. Not too long ago, maybe a couple years ago, I found like my old notes. I had like a little briefcase and everything. I found my old notes and I was running that as if it was my organization back then. So it's always been a part of me and who I am. I went to college. Shout out to North Carolina A&T, Aggie Pride.
Okay,
Okay.
HBCU.
Right, exactly. Right out of college, I got recruited to General Electric. I was a financial analyst, moved all over the country, and I did the traditional path.
Right.
But that was all that I was exposed to. And I think if I had been exposed to different paths in entrepreneurship earlier, I would have gone that route sooner. But I learned along the way. If I had known a Natina in my life, I know this is interviews about me, but your story is amazing too. And the things that you've been able to do over time. If I would have known there were different ways of getting to the bag and living and creating a life and income for yourself, I probably would have chosen that sooner. Although I appreciate my time in corporate, I
Oh,
appreciate
yeah.
every experience that I've had. It added value. Now that I'm on the other side and corporations are my clients, I know how to speak the language. So I do appreciate and value that time.
Listen, talk that shit, sis. Wait, repeat that. She said, I appreciate corporate. And now that I'm on the other side, where corporations are my clients. Okay.
Yeah,
I
yes.
just had to back that up because it was a gym. You just have so many dope things. This is just a part of your story. I think oftentimes we look at our past and we focus where we are now and where we would like to be in the future. But there's these stepping stones. So we've talked about those stepping stones, but let's talk about corporate, because I'm interested in knowing, you retired early. There was a reason for that. What role did you hold in corporate? How did you navigate your way up the ladder?
Pivoting for me was, I would say, a central theme throughout my corporate career as well. I started off, like I said, with General Electric as a financial analyst, and this is like the premier program. Everybody's leadership development program was patterned after GE's program. It was a great experience for me. Howsoever, I realized it did not bring me joy. So there was a 2-year program. Towards the end of it, I was like, time for me to do something new. And I left GE. And people were like, oh my God, you're going to leave GE? I did. Completely changed paths. So I moved into operations, moved to Atlanta, started working with a company that fully 100% paid for upfront, not reimbursed, paid for upfront my MBA. And I went to Emory. So I'm working full time, doing the Emory program in the evening. As soon as I finished that program, I left that company. There was no commitment to stay. It was time for me to do something new. I got recruited into healthcare. So now I'm in a completely different industry doing something completely different. So I've never been afraid to do something. And I want to say this because I think a lot of times, especially as Black women, we feel like, well, I need to get this amount of experience and these certifications, and then I qualify to even be considered. I walked into that healthcare role like, I've been here, I've been doing this because I knew how to lead. And that's all that I really needed. I can learn the nuances of the company and the job and the role, but I moved into a director role in healthcare and I loved it. I loved the organization at the time. It was a lot of fun. It fit my personality. My teams loved me. I had a great time. And then when it wasn't so great anymore, I started looking for another role in another company and I moved to a new state. So at the height of my career in corporate, I was a VP of operations for another healthcare company. And I was overseeing a multi state territory. I had about 2,000 people reporting to me, doctors, directors, staff, operations folks. So I was doing the thing and it was great. I made more money in each role, more responsibility in each role, but it never defined me. So I always knew, especially towards that, and I knew that was going to be my last role in corporate. I didn't know how it would come to its conclusion, but I did know it was time for me to take my talents elsewhere.
Absolutely. So was there one particular thing that said, okay, now is the time? And if so, what was that moment where you were like, okay, I have to pivot? I may not know how it all work out, but I have to.
Sometimes you know that you're wearing shoes that don't fit you anymore. When I was recruited and took that last role, I knew the role wasn't hard for me. What I was being asked to do and how I was leading, I was number one or number two in every category that mattered. I was crushing it. But I just knew I need to explore what I can do when I take my talents and apply them to something that builds wealth and legacy for myself. And I don't believe in failure. I believe you learn lessons. You win and you learn lessons. No one can take away from me what I have. My resume is my resume. It speaks for itself. If I ever wanted to return, I knew that I could do that too, but that wasn't my plan or my intention. I'm very big on listening to my own intuition. And I've done things to strengthen my ability to listen to my intuition because it's never failed me. It's spot on every single time. So it was really just listening to myself. I didn't need anybody's permission, although I do have advisors because I think that's important. But me telling me I was ready was enough.
Oh, I love that. That speaks to who you are and the work you do. Not everyone has that in them. They may question it, but it's people like yourself that helps to motivate and empower other leaders and really tap into that self-awareness, which
Right.
honestly, self-awareness is the number one pillar for us of what our audience should take away from listening to the Pivot Muse, starting to understand how important self awareness is and how do you trust yourself. One of the things I want to ask you about is your copywritten permission to power pyramid. Can you tell us about that and tell us when you decided to create?
So, the permission to power pyramid is a conceptual model that I created after working with hundreds of executives, entrepreneurs, small business owners who all had one thing in common. They all sucked at self care. I'll just take it back just a little bit because what I do right now in iSee Technologies, one of the services that we provide is around workforce wellness and helping companies, corporations teach their teams how to deal with stress and anxiety and manage those kinds of things in the workplace, as well as performance management, that kind of thing. So the permission to power pyramid came from that, from starting to understand what are the steps that people need to take mentally and intellectually to be able to be most successful at prioritizing their self-care, because I firmly believe that there's a process that we can follow, right? So the permission to power pyramid starts with giving yourself permission to prioritize your self-care. And then once we've given ourselves permission, then we're most successful at the second level of the pyramid, which is the practice of self-care.
Right.
So once we've got permission cracking and practice popping off, that's when we access the third level, which is activating peace. And it's in that peace that we can tap into our inner strength to deal with and make decisions from a place of calm and navigate things. And that's where our power lies, which is the top of the pyramid. So we go from permission to practice to peace to power. It's in that ability to tap into those things that makes all the difference for us. So I often tell people that giving yourself permission to prioritize self care is the superpower that lifts the invisible load. Oftentimes we don't think about that in business, and it doesn't, whether you're in corporate or whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're doing a little bit of both, you got a side hustle going on. We're in a world that glorifies grind culture, but when we're not rested, when we're not caring for ourselves, we actually exacerbate all the things that make it harder to be successful in our businesses or in our corporate careers. When we're rested, when we feed into ourselves and pour into ourselves, we tap into our gifts even better. We're able to listen to that intuition and know what to do next. I'm telling you, it's never led me wrong. So I created this model to help people to be able to visually see this is what it looks like. And then I created programs and steps around that so that, okay, now we've talked about it. I get it conceptually. How do we put it into practice?
I love that. And that was a great follow up to us talking about that self awareness. You have built a model for training and helping people be able to understand and empower themselves to make those changes. So I love it. So tell us about iSee Technologies and how did you get started and just a little bit about that journey because I have a couple questions I want to follow up with.
So, iSee Technologies is a people development firm, and we work with corporations and government agencies to support them in helping their teams become more collaborative, more productive, and profitable, and their team members to show up more wildly motivated to perform at their best. Can you imagine like being wildly motivated? That's something where you really tap into the authenticity of people. So, the solutions that we provide are around workforce wellness. How do we show up as the best version of ourselves? How do we manage stress and anxiety and even master it so that we can enjoy the journey, celebrating our performance? A lot of people are comfortable criticizing themselves, but we're not always comfortable giving ourselves a pat on the back for our performance. If you learn to do that, then imagine the difference that that makes in a performance review situation, or how you evaluate others for leaders. If you understand the power of celebrated performance advocacy, then you can also bring that out of people as well. So those are some of the lanes that we operate in. We also provide inclusivity training. So now, interestingly enough, iSee Technologies came out of necessity, really. Before it was ever iSee Technologies, before it had a name, I'm a co founder. My co founder is my sister, Kamille. And interesting fact about my sister, Kamille, is that she was born totally blind. Now, while I said my path was straight up the ladder with corporate, Camille's was different. When she graduated from college, she couldn't buy a job. No one wanted to take the chance, or people had preconceived notions about what somebody who was blind can do, despite the fact that she was highly talented and highly capable. So she experienced a lot of career rejection that led her to being underemployed, which is a very prominent issue in the differently abled community. So oftentimes, even though the skill sets and the talents are there, the opportunities are not. So instead of the path that she probably should have been on, she ended up becoming a massage therapist, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great career path. I love my massage therapist, but it wasn't
Right.
what Camille was passionate about. It was just the only job that she could get. No one questioned her ability to rub on people. So that's what she was doing when she also started part time working with the Department of Health and Human Services, providing assistive technology training for people who had lost their vision. Meaning, this is early days of the iPhone. We know how to use our phone the typical way that you use it, but when you're blind or you have a visual impairment, there's another whole nother set of accessibility capabilities that your phone has. And Camille was an early adopter to that. So she was training people. So that was the technology component, was really starting with accessibility technology. I was still in corporate, but I saw what she was doing, and me being me, they were paying her as a 1099. I was like, we need to make a business out of this. So that's how it got started. And then around the time that I transitioned out, we started formalizing training programs. And a lot of the conversations we were having were around inclusivity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And obviously, in the last couple of years, that's been a hot topic. So we started creating solutions around that. Things kind of developed from there. We provide accessibility services now, some IT services as well. But the start was my sister couldn't get a job, and we had a problem with that. So we created our own solution, and she hired herself.
Right.
So she is the CEO of iSee Technologies, and I'm the COO. I handle all the operations.
Right. So shout out to Kamille.
Big
Okay.
time.
She's an amazing orator as well.
Yes.
So all those companies really missed out on the talent that she had, and now they
Hmm.
have to pay her to come in as a consultant. Again, another life hack, another
Hmm.
pivotal moment that was done out of necessity. So you find yourself as you see your sister, both of you went to college, got your education. Clearly, that your paths were different because she was blind.
You're exactly right. Camille gives a keynote called The Magic of Being Differently Abled, and it's a reframe on disability. One of the things that she talks about in that keynote is being a positive steward of your privilege. And a lot of people get uncomfortable when we talk about privilege, and it's typically people who are using their privilege inappropriately who get uncomfortable. But everyone has some form of privilege. I was born with the privilege of sight. So I use that privilege to create pathways in this business. My sister wasn't born with the privilege of sight, but she was born with the privilege of vision. And that vision led her down the path that we're on now. And now she's created opportunities. Some of our facilitators are women who are blind and visually impaired. And now they're getting money. And that's important because the unemployment rate in the blind community is 70%. That's 70%. I mean, that's astronomical. So when we positioned ourselves to be able to give opportunities, not charity, these are talented women. They're very good facilitators. They are good at what they do just in general, but we created a pathway to give them opportunities to have economic mobility.
Absolutely. It's beautiful. One of the things I thought was super boss about the way you navigate and run operations. You have the foundation side of the company and you have the for-profit side of the company. You also have become certified with government for government contracting. When you were structuring the business and you're thinking about Kamille and the mission of the company, tell us why you decided to structure the company in that way. I want you to just talk about that because I think that's important for our audience to understand if they're thinking about setting up a business in that way.
What I thought about in the certification process was that, and initially when we started this out, I wasn't really thinking about government contracting. They're an esteemed member, a proud member of an organization called the Women's Entrepreneurial Opportunity Project. And it's led by two sisters, similar to my sister and I, two sisters, Antoinette and Marionette Ball. And they've been doing this for over 20 years. One of the pillars that they preached is get into government contracting. There are set asides for women, there are set asides for minorities. There are set asides that the government is required to meet in terms of dollars. Now, is it always easy to navigate and get to those
Mhm.
things?
Right.
Absolutely not. It's a maze. And I'm thankful for WEOP in helping me navigate that maze and the business advisors that I've met along the way. But once I saw that, I said, okay, at the time we were predominantly serving corporate clients. I said, this is another lane to help bring in additional income. I'm talking about it can be game changing income in some of these cases. So, what do I need? What are the barriers that keep people from getting government contracts? In a lot of cases, it's not being certified. So, I wanted to just take that off the table. And shout out to Kamille because she held this down while I was pregnant and I couldn't do all the things. Kamille made sure we got our woman owned small business certification. Now, we did that one ourselves. I will not do that again. There are organizations, consultants out there who will get
Right.
that
Like
done for
we
you.
got.
But well, like we are, who will help you get these things done and navigate them. And I highly recommend it's in the investment is worth it. We got the WOSB. This is in the federal government side. We then added the DBE, which is Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. And then our headquarter office location is in a hub zone. So we got the hub zone certification as well. Now that's all government. One thing that's important to understand about certifications, I want to be clear about this, is that you need to know who is your target audience and your client to determine what certification you should go for. Because not every organization, agency, company acknowledges every certification. You can go get the WOSB, and that's great on the federal government side. But if you're trying to work with corporations, that's not something they care about. Having said that, we also have the Minority Business Enterprise certification pending, as well as the Disability in certification pending because Kamille is, and we were intentional about this, majority owner of the company. We qualify for those certifications. Those are acknowledged by corporations. Think about Coca-Cola, Disney, those kind of, they acknowledge those certifications. So it's important to know who is your client. And it does matter because they get credit when they spend dollars with certified woman owned businesses, enterprises, with certified minority business enterprises. That's something to be cognizant of. And I'll add, it's a lot of hoops to jump through. And I think that's unfortunate that we have to prove that we're minorities and we're experiencing disadvantages, that we're women and we experience disadvantages. But I wasn't going to let that stop me from getting my paperwork.
Right. I love it. Those are some gems. All right. Let's have a little fun before you go. We call this pivot or push. I'm going to present to you a few scenarios and you will just say pivot or push, no explanation. All right. So you're 25 years old. You're in a really tough situation with your current employer. You're unhappy, no liquid savings yet. But if you cash out on your 401k, you can take home $20,000 after taxes and start over. Pivot or push.
Pivot. I'm out. Give me the 20 racks. I'm gonna create a whole new life.
All right. So you took the 20 and you bounced. I think I know the answer to this one. You have what looks like a promising business opportunity going on, but very limited runway because we know 20,000 don't take you that far paying bills. Pivot or push. Pivot is like go get you a job or push through.
Oh, push. I gotta see. I gotta find out.
All right. So you are, let's just say, 2 years in a relationship. Your partner is warm and loving. You're young. The love is still there, but you wake up one day and you realize you don't see growth within yourself. Matter of fact, your financial situation is worse than you were a couple years ago. Do you pivot or push?
Pivot. I'm out. Yeah. I don't know if you want details, but pivot.
Okay. We're gonna go there. Tell us, why would you pivot out of this relationship? I gave you just 2 years because I already know you ready to move.
You said the main thing about the main thing. I don't see growth. People are in our lives for reasons, seasons, and lifetimes. As women, we get taught from day one, find the one. I think that does us a disservice because we try to make things last and work and go on to marriage that really shouldn't. I had a great time in this 2 years. I learned a lot. I grew a lot. You gave to me, I gave to you. And now it's time for us to go on and do something greater. That is how I essentially, literally made my way to my husband, who was the one to push through. There wasn't any like adversity to push through with, but to go to the next level with. My college boyfriend, had I stayed with him, I joke all the time, I'd have probably been a divorce cheater. He was great for the couple years in college, and I interacted with him shortly after, and I had just grown tremendously in ways that did no longer align with who he was. Where I'm from, the mindset would have been to stay and get married because we had been together for that long. And I think that would have been like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. That's not a slight against him. It's just that I needed to go and grow and have all these other experiences. So pivot.
The love is still there. I asked that same question to a guy, and the answer was different, and his explanation was great. But for us as women, because of the way we were raised and things we saw in the past, we have to understand it's also okay to love them and understand that you need to move on.
Nothing detrimental has to happen to make let you know it's time for me. And that's why I talk about intuition a lot. Your intuition will tell you if you woke up and you feel like I can't grow here. I love you, but I can't grow here. Something's got to change. We got to go on because my love for my husband, again, going into 7 years of marriage now, is still growing. We're not hitting any glass ceilings or any barriers to stop that growth together. So love can grow, but we will stay in situations that no longer serve us. When my husband and I were doing coaching, we talked to a lot of people about how to have a healthy end to their relationship. Like sometimes this ain't the thing that we need to keep working on to make it work because it's done. What we're
Right.
going to do together has already been done. And now it's time to have a healthy separation and go on about our business to do other things.
I love that. This has been so dope.
I've done a lot of podcast interviews. This was one of my favorites. Like the way that you touched on and the things that you touched on. We're not one monolith of ourselves. We're multidimensional. And I love that you hit all those dimensions. We got a chance to talk about that.